If you follow this channel, you keep hearing me say about the performance aspect of things, but also that I say it's cool to play, it's cool to perform, but we're not sound engineers, so it's hard to make it sound well on stage. Well, today's video is all about that. Sounding great, playing live. That's today's video. Are you ready for it? Let's go and do it right now. Hey, hello, I'm in location and thank you for checking out yet another video. Now, if this is your first time here, do not hesitate to click subscribe and hit that notification bell. Whenever I upload a new video, you'll be kept in the loop and you'll not miss out on anything. Stick around till the end of this video. I will tell you all about the dance carousel. I will tell you all about what that is, and I will tell you all about that cool community that we are building that's vastly growing and what I consider to be one of the greatest places for synths on the web. In order to know what it is that you want, I would suggest to use a sampler of some sort. Why a sampler? That is your easiest way to compare what it is that you are doing. I call it, with a fancy schmancy term, associative analysis. In other words, you will analyze by associating your music to something else. And how you can do it is you can probably take a sample of a track that you love, a track that you know that sounds well, stick it in the sampler and morph your own synthesizers and drum sounds to the sample that you have and get as close as you can possibly get. If you are in the same sort of like area, the same neighborhood, chances are your sound is absolutely going to sound better than you thought it was going to be just by trying to guess where the magical frequencies are. I'm using an OB6, I'm using the DFAM, I'm using the Minitaur, I'm using the Sub 37, I'm using a 909 drum computer and a whole lot of pedals, but still, I need something to help me get my sound to sound a bit like what is out there. And the sampler really helps me. It forces me to just like look at different sounds that I can implement in those synthesizer-driven things in my setup that I have. But also the sampler is the one door opening myself up to the outside world, if you will, to the more, beatport, track source driven world where the sound is probably more polished or more of a market conformity, you know? And that is an important thing if you want to just have a sound that works. Club sound systems, festival sound systems, or bigger speakers have a certain rule. And that's not a problem if you're DJing. You only got these two stereo faders that conveniently are sorted out by a stereo fader, which means you ideally only have two faders to work with. That's simple. If you are now all of a sudden finding yourself in a position where most of us DAWless characters are, that we have to now take care of all these different sound sources separately, at some point we are going to lose track. If you feel you've got enough low end on your kick drum, and it really isn't, you start to build your house on this flimsy foundation, but then the rest of the mix is going to sound flimsy. And that's what I keep hearing. If I'm booking a lot of acts, even if everybody knows what they're doing, everyone's going to probably sound different, you know, and it's cool. I was speaking to Tomo about it. Tomo in the Mühlen, artist from Germany. Go look him up. Really cool character with a mohawk and a beard. Man, he's a really cool dude. But as I am, we are gear nerds to the point where we really can debate, like, is this cable going to sound better than this cable? The cable, not even the plug, the cable. You know what I mean? Nerdy stuff. But I was talking to him about it, and he was like, yeah, and in the modular world, this module has a better bass drum, and this module has the better this. So even in terms of the different modules in the modular world and the different synths and the different sounds, drum computers, they all serve a different purpose. They all do a different thing. And now you, as an artist, has to figure that out. It's hard. Another thing to really try out is to see if you can get your demos to sound well at a different spot. Now, if your best mate owns a club, you're the luckiest person in the world. Go and check your demos out there. If not, and you're like the rest of us, go and check your sound in the car. A car is most definitely going to be a place where you sit inside of the sound instead of just looking at it, or at least listening to it coming from a certain angle. So that's also a strong point to do. So try out how big your sound actually is by playing it on loudspeakers, let me put it that way, or playing it in the car, or ideally play it in an empty club or somebody with a big sound system. Then you get like the gist of what it is that you are actually doing, and I'm going to explain why that is so different. Because it is very difficult if you are in the DAWless world to absolutely grasp why sound works the way it does. Now there's a few things I told you before. It is a difficult thing to read a graphical EQ. I mean, this is something that takes time to really get into and know what it is that you should be paying attention to. And if you are, like most of us DAWless characters, playing DAWless, meaning you're not using a digital audio workstation, you might not have the plugins available to go check out what your sound is actually doing. And I don't think that if you've got the money to spend on a Sub 37 or an OB6 or whatever, because that's the kind of price you would have to pay for a graphic equalizer that absolutely accurately shows and conveys what your frequencies are all about. So a different thing to do is to absolutely think on, okay, how does it work? Now that's something that you need to take into consideration. Headphones do not give you a great perception of your sound. I mean, our ears were not meant to just get sound up that close. We're absolutely capable of transcribing sound from a distance, but not so much as it is that close. So how do you translate the sound you hear on your headphone or on speakers to a club sound system? Another thing is, when you're on a club sound system, most definitely you're standing behind the speakers. This is different from being in a studio where you're sitting in front of the speakers, which is completely different from having a headphone on your head. The difference is being, most engineers will tell you, with a headphone on your stereo spreading and your stereo field is not so much, it's cool. And if you were like me and you smoked some blunts in your life, the coolest thing to be is making music with a closed headphone and just like playing around with the stereo flanger. I fell off my chair once trying it with 808 high, it spanned up and down, but that's a different story. But that is not really how you should perceive your sound, and the width is going to just like be exaggerated a little bit. Now, speakers in the studio are there to represent what frequencies you are hearing. They are not made to really give you that that kind of vibe. So a low-end kick drum or a low-end bass line, bass sound will sound different on your monitor speakers in the studio as they would sound in the club environment. So that translation can be scary. It scared me the first time that I played records. I was a vinyl DJ back in the days, and I played and I bought records and I was playing them around in my studio, and oh yeah, with the stopwatch I calculated 1 hour to play out, and then I got to the venue and the bass drum that sounded like this on my headphone and like this on my studio monitors sounded like this in the club. I made a mistake in determining how much energy I was actually going to throw out on the people, which is a very strong point. Now, it's very hard for me to explain to starting out artists DAWlessly, like, don't worry about it. A kick drum and a bass line, if they're well mixed, will really like occupy your crowd's attention span for a long time. Everybody goes like, no, it needs to be this, and I need to add this, I need to put this in there and that in there, and everybody wants to overproduce, as is what's happening if you're sitting behind a computer. The trick is to really try and focus on what happens. How big is it going to be? If you're clubbing and you can pay attention, try and pay attention to how big the sound actually is. And try if you can translate the sound you're hearing in a club on a festival to what you're hearing in your studio. Is there a possibility you can make a little bit of a mind map there? That's a trick that I tell my students as well. Try and take what you hear on the dance floor back into the studio. Try and take what you have in the studio and try to translate it back onto a festival thing. It takes a while, but once you get it like forever. And another thing, when you put all these things into practice, is a very important one, and that's the one people don't speak about too much, but it's there, and it's called ear fatigue, meaning your ear is getting tired at some point. Now, if you are clueless to any of this and you just bought your first synthesizer, anybody starting out making music, ear fatigue sets in after an hour. It means your brain does not process what you're hearing anymore. It's too much. It's just like, ah. And to reset your ears takes another 30 minutes. So this is if you were brave enough to not tamper and fiddle about with the volume knob all the time. Because if you constantly go, oh yeah, this kicks from, listen, boom, and you up the volume, then the ear fatigue sets in even earlier. And ear fatigue is the devil's advocate, because then it doesn't work. I've been in studio sessions before where we had goosebumps from the minute we started to play. Oh my god, this is the best thing ever. And after 5 hours, I'm really starting to doubt if we had the right bass drum, and that bass sound could need a little work, and your mind plays tricks on you. And the rule of thumb is simpler than you might think. If it kicks your butt in the first 5 minutes, it will kick your butt after the first 5 hours. And get something done in 5 hours. I think it becomes work after those 5 hours. The goosebumps wear off, you get used to the sound. Everything is like not as special as it was once you just like found everything. So get really going fast. Get something substantial on tape is what we used to say back in the days, or get something to really go. Let me not kick my synthesizer here. That's really just get something substantial going, and after that, come back to it the next day, fine tune, and try it out. Don't put it on the wall of the museum. It's probably going to suck and fail, but you know, practice makes perfect. Follow along. I'm going to just like pinpoint how these things work for me, and it should help you out if you're trying to figure out how you should set your sound. Another thing I will also, because this is a question that I got in one of the comments on the channel, explain briefly how I have connected this hodgepodge of synthesizers that's sitting on my desk. If you're ready, let's go and do it. I had a question on somebody asking me how is everything connected, so I will briefly go over how I set everything up. Basically, you see a fly case here. That's the operation. It's a UGG fly case made for just a, I think, Pioneer DJ controller. I ripped the inside out of it, and basically I set it up so that it's a little bit higher. It's about this high, you know. And there's an extra sort of like layer on top of it, so all the power goes in the bottom, and then the equipment sits on top of it. And then obviously, since I've got so much stuff, I need to bring extra bags as well, but this is ideally just the case that everything is in. Then going from left to right, you'll see a Space Echo RE20. You'll see a June 60 sitting right here, a Strymon Black Sky, a Boss DD500, and those are effects that, especially with the one sitting on top of here as well, the DD7 by Boss. Those are effects that are directly connected to the synthesizer. I have not used the auxiliary sense on this small EPM8 desk that I've got sitting right here, because I want to be in control directly. Now, there's numerous videos online on which pedals to get for synthesizers, because I think there's a different situation going on, as they tend to sound different. I need to just, this mains is way too tight, so I hope that this goes well. Okay, those are my effects. The TB03 is back on the table, as I thought to just do this thing on sound quality, on the way to sound better. This machine does a few things already out of the gate. It spans over different frequency ranges within the same sound. That's cool. So in order for you to understand where your low end is and where your mid range and your high end is, learning how to listen to this machine in particular could get you there. So let's just try it up. So there's no effects. There's, if you hold function, you turn this knob, you can get to the different things. Then there's a delay type. When I go to delay type, it says tape, but you can twist it to go to reverb. I'm in the bathroom. Or obviously back to tape delay. And I use this because if you are familiar, excuse, with the older Richie Houghton, the Minus and the Plastic Man days kind of type of techno sound, he always used this tape delay kind of effect. That's pretty cool on sounds like that. So I like to use it because it sounds otherworldly. It sounds like an alien just puked on my synthesizers, and that's absolutely cool, obviously. Now I'm starting with the 303, then Underneath the 303 is the 909 drum computer. I've got a black box sitting right here, which is a sampler, or yeah, groove box of some sort. Well, it's a sampler. Acid box 3, which is a filter. And then there's the OB6, then there's the subsequent 37 here, there's a Minitaur, and there's a DFAM sitting right there. Those are my instruments. Then, certain instruments make sound on their own. They just need a little bit of a push to just drive themselves off the cliff, which means they've got an internal clock. Other synthesizers need to get a little bit of a nudge, and that nudge machine is my RetroKids 008. It really borders next to the Alesis MMT8, if you are aware. If not, it records MIDI notes. It does it on 8 separate MIDI channels, which means 1 through 8 channels can have 16 MIDI channels, which means ideally you can set an ID. That's what the MIDI channel is for. So in my case, going up, this is 9, MIDI channel 9, this is 10, MIDI channel 10, and this is 11. So subsequent 9, Minitaur 10, OB6 11 on my last 3 channels. So if you calculate it, that means 1 through 5 obviously are just dedicated to drums. I will get to why I do that. And then 6, 7, and 8 are respectively 6, subsequent 7, Minitaur 8, the last one being the OB6. This is a monophonic synth. No matter how many toes and fingers I will lay up on this keyboard, it will only play one note at a time. That's monophonic. This is a paraphonic synthesizer, the subsequent 37 right here. It means that it does the monophonic thing, but it gets to just play the oscillators separately from each other. So when you engage duo mode on the subsequent, now all of a sudden you can play a bass line and a lead. Everything will still go through the same filter envelopes and everything, but now you can get a little bit more character going. Not what we're going to do today, but hey, that's a nice feature. Listen to Stefan Botson. Listen, for instance, to tracks by Ento out of that Hungry Music camp. Then you'll hear how crazy they use the paraphonic mode on the subsequent 37. And my polysynth is the OB6. And with this, I can play chords. As you know, chords are made up of multiple sounds that interact together. And that is the only multisynth that I have. Now, that is as far as the setup goes. I have got the black box engaged because I need some bearing, some context as to where my sound is. When you start a mix, you will find yourself in a position where you're going, okay, now I've got low end, but how much low end is enough? How much high end is too little? You know, you need to figure that out. And one thing I can suggest is get clear sounding samples. Any sound pack you can just buy or get or whatever. Nowadays it sounds pretty well mixed, which means that you should be sweet really in trying to just like get a sound going that works. Now I got different things going. Let's turn the sequences off because I would like to go over the sounds that I have here. This on the channel that says 303 plays the black box. On the channel that says looper plays the OB6, and the 303 is coming from the tape in. Okay, don't ask, but that's the way I have routed it through the desk right now. So on this thing, it can play loops. It can just do that Ableton thing, clip launching, which means this, if I'm going to play, say, some loops that I got right here, out of a different song or breakbeat, or another beat. Ooh. Nice. So those are loops that are just getting fired up by the almighty MIDI fighter that I got sitting right here. So the 16 knobs here, dual concentric knobs by the way, correspond to the 16 cells you see right here. Dual concentric meaning the knobs do two things at once. So they'll play filters, and you can press them down and then they'll just engage certain things. Now a trick that I don't see too many people do is you can use the black box as a drum machine. If you go into a sample and you'll say to that sample, you know what, let's go in here. If you go into the sample, let's go back and say I'll go in you see that it does different things right here on this first thing. You can have one of 4. Let's go into maybe an ARP loop here. Stop, don't play. We'll go in. Then you can choose out of sample, clip, slicer, and granular, which means it can be a granular synth, which uses different textures to play. It can be a slicer where you slice it up and you can play the different slice of your keyboard. You can have a clip that I just showed you playing it, and then just a sample, which means it's just going to do a one-shot sample, and that is the important part. There you go. So now I've got a drum computer engaged, and on my sequences page you see these small squares, and in those squares you can record whatever it is that you're doing. You set the length and then it records your thing. So now you got this audio playing thing. Now let's engage. What I got right here, the first one is a bass drum and a clap. That's already running, so I'm engaging it and I'm taking it out once. The MIDI fighter's got different pages. This page is now set to the first bad page. I can click a different page and then go into the sequence, but you know, I don't want to flip through pages. That's what I hate. When I'm performing, I want to have everything going, and this I'm not going to turn off anyway. So usually I'll turn it on and fade it in, but for sake of this video I will just now show you how that works. See? And off. Stop. 2, 3, 4, 5. Same thing with the clap here. Clap, 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 and off. Boom. So, on and off. Let's play those things together. There we go. Nice. So we're in business, right? As you can hear, the 303, it starts to sound a little bit to the background. So let's look at how we can enhance this sound to make it sound better. The clap is absolutely gorgeous. I think it sounds well, it's bright enough. This is the sort of like range that you should really focus on. Now, even if it sounds a little bit too bright to you, just the sound tech is going to help you out in the room. He or she is going to make sure that you don't screw up, right? 303. See if we can find a kick here. Shaping the kick to see if it can sit underneath the kick that I already have. This sounds nice. Let's record it in. Okay. Take it out, take it in. 1, 2, 3, and. Old school. Bam, 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 ba-dam, bam. And it doesn't sound like it's quantized, so what I'm going to do is take it out of record. I'm going to go to Alt Quantize. Don't like it. Okay. I think something went off with the initial triggering, so I stopped it and started it. And now everything sounds pretty okay. I think I need hi-hats also. Let's find my hi-hats. I'll go to a different track because I don't want them to be engaged on the same track. Like I said before, I was going to get into why I use different tracks. Sometimes you want to mute your kick, and if you play the hi-hats on the same track, they'll also be muted, and you don't want that. So what I'm going to do is go here. I'm going to wait for my turnaround. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put in record. First, the open hand, like so. Close that. yeah, a little bit of variety, you know, a little bit of a crazy thing going. Doesn't need to be constantly that same thing. So, cool. Now I can shape the head on this machine. There's different things with the RK008 by Retrokids, my MIDI recording machine. If I'm opening up this hi-hat, it does not record this. Nice one. Listen to how the hi-hat sounds now. If things need to be adrenalized, it needs to be louder when you get further on in your track, this is exactly how you do it. You open up the rawness or the decay, it says on the 909, but anyone that owns a 909 or knows how to work the sounds of a 909 know that this is friendly, nice and dandy, walking the dog, and this is a burning Christmas trees in the middle of the street, you know what I mean? Difference. Okay, so we're keeping it nice and sensible for now. The 303 does its thing. I'm going to give it a little bit of delay, a little bit of space, because this will get drowned out pretty soon. Because the next thing I'm going to play now, as opposed to what I always do, I am going to play pads on the OB6. I've got a pad line in my brain that I think that's going to work. Yeah. Now, before I get into that, that's a few things that I do. Again, if things need to be adrenalized a little bit more, I will definitely open up the resonance, but listen to this. Let's open everything up. Playing this, turn you down for a second. Listen to this. And listen to the filter. This is full resonance, right? So this is a SEM filter. But I've routed this through the acid box. Now there's a few things that I've did. Buying this expensive synth, it comes with effects. Still though, this thing goes through the delay, the DD7 here, because I want an extra delay on there. And it goes through this filter as well. So if I'm opening up the filter right here, now I can control this sound with the Acid Box 3 amazing filter by Erica Synths that have done a reissue, and as it so goes, they have looked at the Polyvox, a Russian synthesizer, and they have lifted that filter, stereo filter, out of there, and they made a reissue. Listen to this. How sweet is that? Listen to the reso though. Let's moderately do that. And now to scrape your eardrum. Nice. Also there's LFOs involved, you know, if I wanted to say like I need a little bit of a LFO, put the LFO in there. Tap it. Yeah, one hit. And different shapes for your LFO are here. Your LFO rate, obviously. How cool is that? That's control in, so you can send a trigger signal in there to get it synced up. I've not done that. Something that I can do, but I've not done it. So I'm going to take the modulation off. Just take the reso out. That's low pass, this is band pass, which works well with the resonance as well. So to me, it's all to do with getting different timbres or different kind of shapes on my sound. Okay, this is the filter and the OB6. Now we're ready to play something, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And go back. Major, and then back to major, minor. Yeah, I'm thinking that could work with, I don't know, inner. know that I don't like. We have to play it again. Open up the filter a little bit more. Stop. Record it in. Think I can do that better? Stop. Record and that's for what? Yeah. Back here. 1, 2, 3, and nice. I think I still hear a note that's not supposed to play, which is this one. So I'm going to say erase this note. Cool. So now we've got our OB6 sitting there. We're going to mellow it out, right? So which means I don't need that really sharp sort of sound. I want it to be a little bit more mellow, as you know, because where's my 303? Gone, right? So resonance down here. Nice. Now it's time for the bass line, obviously. I'm going to go to my track 10, which is sitting right on track 7 here. And then following the chorus. That sounds nice. Recording it in. 2, 3, and nice. Now the only thing that I think that I need is an arpeggio of some sort, so I'm gonna go in and find it here. Something like wow. Okay, let's try it out. Probably gonna go wrong, but I knew it. Okay, that's better. Wow, wow, wow. Looking at sound design, I think, okay, let's lower my pads and go in and say, like, we need a little bit of envelope generation here. Block it up a little bit. Now this thing is going through a whole lot of pedals right here. It's going to go through the Strymon Black Sky, it goes through the Space Echo here, and it goes also through the June 60, which is a reissue of the Juno 60 chorus. So I'm just trying something out, right? Let's not wash it out too much, because panning is also a big part, right? If you want to stick something further away, so panning like back and forth, that is reverb. Panning left to right, obviously it's going to be the panning knobs sitting right here on the mixer, which is what I don't use them as well, which you can just, but you know, I just make sure that the sound is well, because most of the sound system in a club is mono anyway. You don't want to be spacing stuff out using stereo spreading, and half of your track just falls into the shitter, so you need to really be careful, like how do you space it out. Okay, so what we've got right now is a pretty decent balanced idea. I mean, it could be done better, obviously. Let's lower this a little bit. So you got all these different things, pads in. I've got my mutes programmed for the different tracks, for all the tracks here on the RK008. We mean kicking one, bam. You know, taking my heads out here, it's also the same. And I'm taking this out. Now there's no drums. Still an off note in the OB6, but I'm going to leave it for now. But usually I will sort it out. Kick and heads and drums. Bass drum. Bass line, sorry. Now I'm using the 303 as a catalyst for when everything is done. I'm not using another lead, because if you want to get your sound to really work, you shouldn't be overfeeding the sound. And sometimes people overfeed the sound. It's just too much, too many things, and all these big synthesizers, they're all fighting for attention. So the thing is hierarchy, right? Bass up. Now all of a sudden, whoa, this could work with this. Finding the sweet spot, right? That's it. Being in the pocket means finding the sweet spot. You find a sweet spot here between close to 12 o'clock and just past 12 o'clock, right? This means no 303. So you let people get used to the sounds you're using, right? So my drums are not really that complicated, as you can hear. Do you hear that? That's the tip. Let's see if we can introduce a little bit of groove on the heads, just to So I'm gonna go to Alt 6. That's a squant, which means quantize. One to the left. Now I'm gonna hold this, and I'm going to hold Alt and yep. My closed head is now giving up a little bit of groove. Starts to become a little bit more frivolous, and what it does is, because the timing is a little bit off, now all of a sudden you pay attention to the clap that doesn't say clack, but it says crack. So there's different elements that start before the beat, and that gives an instant groove. So here's your answer. Do you need to use groove on and shuffle on everything? No, just look at which sounds are having their own kind of groove, and then that works out. So turning down the frequency and go in with my bass line. And don't let the label fool you. This says bass line, that says analog bass synthesizer. If it works out that can play a lead, if it lets you, and this does the same thing, just run with it, you know? In the end of the day, I think a lot of people are using the subsequent for bass, and obviously you hear me playing completely pads in. And keep that level in mind when you're performing. Don't get too enthusiastic. If that is the case, that could be, okay, this is what I do. I'll open up this filter, Now all of a sudden there's more high-end. I'll put a little bit more reso on there, as you can hear. Now the filter does a different thing, and my kick drum goes into Rotterdam rave mode. And that clap still does the trick if I don't go too hard on the kick and not too much on this one. Taking out the bass. Lewis Rumley and Michael Pfeiffer are the new patrons for this week. Thanks for joining up at patreon.com/analogkitchen, where the community is growing vastly, and I'm really enjoying the fact that it is. I think we are, and Lemmy, one of the moderators on my Discord channel, has broomed it up a little bit, and it's starting to look a little bit more organized as well. So it's really cool. There's community channels now, so you guys can interact even more as before. You won't be breaking the bank. And one of the things that we're doing is the dance carousel. I have been explaining it over the last couple of weeks. What we are doing is absolutely a cool way, and actually a way to communicate and collaborate with you dollars cats out there. If you want to join, that was the question, how do we join a dance carousel? You join by joining my Patreon, and that gives you access into Discord, and that's where all the rules are on how to join the dance carousel. What it is, it's this. Alright, so that is how I think you can sound better. Obviously, there's so many ways to roam. Obviously, definitely, it's not the be-all and end-all, but it will work out. Let me know in the comment section on how you work your sound, if this was valuable to you. And yeah, let me know how things go, right? Now, if you are still watching, you, sir or ma'am, are an absolute superstar. Thank you. I'm in location. You will catch another broadcast next week, same time, same place. Keep watching this space, and I will see you on another video. Peace. I'm out.